Okay, financial planning when single. This will be our fourth episode, as I have referenced in our previous ones. The other three are on our YouTube channel, and we will discuss what they were. So, if you want to go back and look at these videos, if you for the first was financial planning, organization, estate planning. The second, cash management, tax. The third, insurance needs and protection, or retirement readiness. And this one is probably my favorite of the four, so I save the best to last, if you will. So that is today we're going to go over investments a little bit, but some of the basic understanding of what investments are. And we will talk about goal setting with that, setting your path. So why did we put together a series directed towards to women, particular single women? Well, it's mainly because, or it's not mainly because, well, it's that several of our single female clients have asked us to do this. So we've had a good success with women in our practice, and it turns out a lot of those are single. They've gone through a divorce, they've gone through the death of a spouse, or they just chose to be single just by nature. They just never got married, which is fantastic for them. And so they've come to us for advice. They tend to, in general, women have tended to just talk more, which is great. So in financial planning, what we ask is for people to participate in the process, ask a lot of questions, get involved pretty heavily. And women tend to do that more than men. And you may say that right now, going, yeah, I like to talk and listen, and my somebody that a friend of mine or an ex or a former spouse hasn't maybe not been that type of person. So we're going to cover some things related to financial independence. Talk about this a little bit. If we're looking at why it matters, so what are some challenges for single women? Well, I mean, in a lot of cases that there's a wage gap. We know that women live longer than us as men, so they're going to need more money in the future to live off of, and care responsibilities. They don't want their children to really have to be involved in that process. They're very conscious about, I don't want to disrupt my children's lives to take care of me at some point. Another thing that we want to look at with Independence Matters is it has been a great trend over the last. I mean, I've been in this business for 27 years. The trend of the number of females who now are very knowledgeable or want to be knowledgeable with investing in the markets, stock markets, bond markets, different types of markets, or just putting a really good financial awareness plan in place proactively for them has grown tremendously in my career. And that's incredibly exciting. Is nice to have where used to when we had meetings with couples, a lot of times the man in the relationship would show up and the wife would not. In many cases now, sometimes she will come and he will not. And she won't miss the meeting. He may have something else going on or have to plan around or get busy, and she'll definitely come, or they'll come together. And that's fantastic. So we've seen a lot more awareness by women over the years. They want to be more financial independent. They're thinking about that. Even married women, they want to have their side of the table too. They don't want to just be reliant on their spouse, which is exciting. And what we want to talk about today a little bit more with investing is what's that path look like? What should you consider when it comes up to gaining financial independence? And it's important to understand what investments are. And I mentioned a lot of females have gotten there. If you're listening to this video right now, you may be there. So some of this is basic to you, and so don't think we're trying to and we're pretending that you don't know. So some of this is just reminders, and I think even people who are very very focused on the markets just have a really good understanding of investments, getting some of these basics or hearing these basics again is very very helpful. So long-term financial security investing, it can provide that. And I say can because, and we'll talk a little bit more of that in a minute, you've got to be conscious and understand what investments are. You got to understand some of the risk in investments too. So it can help when you start to goal set, provide some long-term security. I want people to understand the power of compound interest or just compounding growth in general. So if when we have money, I tell clients all the time and friends that let your money work for you. Don't let your money sit idle. So if you just have cash sitting around in the bank that's not being utilized for a purpose, you're wasting opportunities in my mind. So we need to figure out how we can make your cash work for you. And working for you means that yes, it may be in some type of investment program, but with that program is the growth and the earnings on that investment are always compounding on itself. So the rule of numbers is that for if an investment or your money makes 7% after 10 years, it doubles. Or if it makes 10% after 7 years, it doubles. So that's that law. So the way we look at it, if whatever dollar figure that is you start with and you don't add to that, if it makes 7% or so after 10 years, it's double what it was. That's awesome. So we talk about that a lot with clients. And stock market performance, I don't get a lot into what this really means for people because the stock market is such a diverse animal. It has a lot of different components to it. There's a lot of different stock markets. So you can, when you look at the indexes out there, when you turn on TV and you see all the different indexes, how they perform, they're all different things. But just looking over historically, I mean, if we can use that 8.6% or so that's on this slide, which is more than the 7% I mentioned about doubling. So if you think about that, if 7% is 10 years, 10% 7 years, 8.5 should be somewhere around 8.5 years it doubles. But it has to do that consistently, right? So for stock market performance, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Informed financial decisions, investing helps individuals make those decisions. But what I think is better to say, how I would really say that is your decisions that you need to make. Investing is a tool to help you achieve those things. So you start with goals, then you look at what is used to fund those goals, to achieve those goals, and that's where investing can come in. So we understand that not everyone is comfortable with investing. In general, I particularly have had a lot of clients and a lot of single females again who didn't get a lot of this education in their lifetime for some reason or another. They weren't involved with their spouse was doing. So we're kind of baby stepping some of this with them. But as they have seen the way we manage with planning and goal setting and using investments as a tool to achieve things, they've become much more comfortable. So we talk about these basics with them, the difference between what stocks and bonds are, the different types of risk involved with each one of those, how they can work together and how they can work independently, really, depending on what your goals are or what you're trying to achieve, which we'll talk a little bit more about goals too. I already mentioned compound interest, which is important. Risk and diversification. So as I said, there's different levels of risk depending on what kind of investments that you put your money into. We want to make sure that you're not invested in things that have too much risk for what your goals are. We also want to make sure you don't have too little risk for what your goals are. And we believe heavily that we don't going to stick out everything in something. So when I mentioned that last slide, that 8.6% with stock market, I don't have a single client that just has everything invested that way. It's a piece of and diversification, but it's never solely. So good portfolio management is having good diversification, understanding the risk that relate to that. And what we see ourselves as with portfolio managers for our clients that we do manage investments is we are risk managers. So we're trying to make sure we mitigate that risk as much as possible. I don't like people worried about what their money's doing. There will be fluctuation if investments, there always are. We try to make sure there's not maybe too much of. So you think about being on the ocean, there's going to be waves at times. You ever think about a cruise ship? So you're on a cruise ship, there's going to be some waves at times, and every once in a while the cruise ship is going to rock a little bit. What I never want is for your dinner plate to be knocked off the table. So diversification and risk management can help that from not happening. You'll feel a little seasickness once in a while, but we're not trying to send you to the infirmary. How about that? And we also talk about long-term strategy. So that's long-term strat. When we invest in anything that carries risk to it, we want to make sure that a client doesn't need those funds short term. So we have more time on our side. Performance is indicative on how long we're able to leave the money there. Again, and that helps with compounding also that conversation. But we want to make sure that when I talk to a client or we talk to our clients, that if we're going to put their money to work in some type of investment strategy that carries some risk to it, and risk being fluctuation, those waves, that they don't need those funds tomorrow. So we're very, very careful on talking to our clients about that. And typically women are much better at allowing that process to work than men. Men, and I'll speak for myself, we get a little bit more nervous and we get a little bit more, how do we fix it? What it is, it seems like it's broken. We need to fix it right now. A lot of our female clients are just more patient. Once they know what their goals are, once they know what the strategy is to reach those goals, they seem to be much more patient and allow things to go through the process, which in a lot of cases, women's portfolios do better because they're not pushing us to make changes much. They're letting it work its process. So again, understanding risk tolerance, understanding diversification strategy, which and I'm going to say this in a second on this next two, work with somebody. I mean, it's just some of this is just, I don't want to say it's overly difficult, but it can be emotionally trying. The beauty of working with someone, a professional, is that you have an ear, you have a shoulder, you have an accountability partner that you can ask questions. And that's what I love about my female clients. They ask tons of questions. But you can get some comfort because you're not doing it by yourself. When you're doing anything in life alone, sometimes the stress just catches up with you. Yes, it can be just tiring, emotional. And when we get there, we sometimes make bad decisions. So the tools and the portfolio reviews and just understanding risk tolerance and diversification strategy, really, if you have a really good planner to work with, it's going to make that stress level so much better. It hopefully will improve your overall returns, lessen that risk, those waves again. But it definitely should be someone that you can that you're comfortable to just pick up the phone, send an email, say, I'm just a little nervous right now. Talk me through this, and that helps a ton. I've covered, I think, most of these. So let's move forward a little bit. So key takeaways on the investment front. Start early. So what I tell clients all the time is I mentioned cash set and idle in the bank. When you have money available, to do something to invest or to build a strategy, a goal setting strategy, when you're funding a retirement plan, just start as early as possible. I mean, think about, there are different ages of people that would listen to this, but everybody I talk to, I'm 54, so everybody I talk to who is in their 50s, that knows what they know today, including me. If I could go back in my 20s and do this a little earlier, start a little earlier, where I would be now versus where I am would be unbelievable. And life just teaches us lessons. Now we know that's another reason experts can help you too, is they've heard the stories by hundreds and hundreds of other families and individuals that they can coach you through. And that's what we love to do here. We love to coach our people, our clients through situations by others to tell them, if somebody else did it this way, don't do it the same way, do it a little bit different. It's going to make a difference in your life, a big difference. Diversify. So if you're working with someone, please, I hope you're not doing it by yourself, but if you're working with someone or how you're structuring maybe your retirement plan at work, make sure things are diversified effectively so you don't have those big waves that's going to knock your dinner plate off or send you to the infirmary. You can use technology to help you do things out there to make decisions. Again, I'm going to rely on, they're programs. Some are free, but if you're really going to be serious and you're going to take risk chances with some of your money, I mean, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would really take the chance of doing that by myself if I think I could make bad decisions. I mean, if I wasn't in this business even, or I'm retired from this business, I'm not doing this I'm not doing it for myself. I got other things I want to spend my time doing. I would rather pay a fee, and they're not, whatever the fee is, if it's valuable and it's going to produce me it's less stress, I can use time other places and possibly even get a little bit better performance return or less volatility from it, I'll pay a fee in a heartbeat. So let's talk a little bit about goals. Again, investments are a tool for your goals. That's why I put goals like second instead of first. Set goals. So for these are the things that I've talked to a lot of my single clients about, my single women. A lot, particularly if they're younger, those who maybe who widowed younger, they're looking to either change change their housing environment. I mean, clients have been through divorces. He's got the house, she didn't. She's got the house, it's too big. They're trying to, or there's a mortgage on it, whatever the case may be. They're trying to get to a point that they can have basically a paid off home. Okay. And so maybe it's downsized, maybe it's just move somewhere else, but their home ownership is big. We talk about that a lot with my single clients. Retirement planning, those who are a little younger, hadn't hit retirement age yet. Again, there's some things that's happened now as a single. If you were married, you're not, that you need to be in discussions about. That could be things like, I guess, Social Security, whether it's widow Social Security because you're widowed now, or whether it's collecting Social Security from your ex-spouse, whether it's your personal one, how to save and fund retirement vehicles to make sure that you're covered for income when you retire. This has happened a lot. The third, education and career growth. We've seen more and more single women, particularly in their 40s and 50s, who are actually going back for something, maybe an advanced degree, maybe going back to college. We've had a couple of those going back and just getting an education maybe they didn't finish, or they're getting an additional degree at an undergrad. So they're going back to school, but they're looking for more career advancement or just, some of it's a self-worth conversation, and education helps with that, which also leads to entrepreneurship. More and more women, which I highly encourage, and when they're single, if they're not in a current job themselves, or maybe it's a W-2 job that they really don't enjoy that much, but they have the skill sets to start a business, something they're really passionate about. How can we help you do that? What kind of things can we coach you on to set goals and use tools to get there so you can run a business? You can start something you've always wanted to start. You've never had the time, the energy, or maybe even the money possibly to do it, but now you do. So how can we move you to that point? So why set goals? I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, and it doesn't have to be financial goals. These can be goals for anything, whether it's health or whatever that is. But you got to have clarity. I mean, you got to understand what the goals are, what you're trying to achieve. All right. It can be passion. It can be again in health, particularly, we need to eat better. We need to exercise more. We need to whatever it is, lose weight. Financially, it can be hitting, I need to have retirement numbers. I need to make sure my later years are funded for long-term care events because I'm single now. I may need something more than if I were married even. So, but what are your clear goals, and have those in some kind of priority? We have worksheets that can help you do that too, by the way. Motivation and focus. If you're really excited about this, is why New Year's Eve goals or New Year's Day goals don't work, because they're just like, we just did it because I don't think people can do it anymore, but we did it because you're supposed to do it on New Year's Day, set a goal. But if you set a passionate goal, you're going to be motivated and focused on it. And and if you're motivated and focused, you will measure it. So if you're in a situation like I wanted to lose some weight. I was motivated and focused to do it. And so measuring the progress was super easy, and I was confident about it. So whenever I hit certain things in that measured process, it got me more confident, which gave me more clarity, more motivation. So I should have drawn this slide out in a circle that repeats itself, because it does increase confidence, gives you more clarity, direction, more motivation, and then you actually start building more goals. You start doing, well, I've done that, or I'm working towards that, or that's working for me. Let me add this one now. Now let me add this one, and it gives us more. And then financial goals do become health goals, or health goals become financial goals, and other types too. So this is beautiful to see this work together. And when we set our goals, we want to look at, now we're doing multiple goals, right? So a long-term goal for some people could be these, retirement plan, home ownership, things like that. A short-term goal could be like, I just want to make sure that next summer I take my children on a trip to where? Okay, that's a short-term goal. Once I have you, if I have you in meetings and we start going through this process, and again, we start with goals before we start with the other stuff. What types of vehicles would we use and recommend to you for each of those goals? So example, and this is a slide earlier, long-term goals. So you have time on your side. These are things that happen not next year or happen in 3 years. Some of this is 10, 15 years later. Because we have more time on the side, we can take a little bit more risk. We can use different types of investments to do things like that, to try to reach or manage towards those long-term goals. For short-term goals, like I said, like next summer or vacation, I'm not going to take risks with that money. I mean, that's money you need to be setting aside. Either you have it now or you need to save a little bit every week or month to get you to that point. You don't need to take that risk, that money. That's coming. You don't have the time to have fluctuation hurt you. That's how we choose what type of investments to do. Short term could be more cash in the bank, CDs, money markets. Long term could be more stocks, maybe some bonds, other things. Midterm goals can be somewhere in the middle of those two. So your risk tolerance or your risk portfolio is developed by the types of goals and and how long that you have to worry about, to those hit. You're trying to achieve those. So what's the benefit? I mean, the benefit of goal setting, I could pull financial off of this and just say goal setting, is stress reduction. I know, because I do this all the time for myself personally, I know that it can be stressful to set goals. I'm aware of that. I see that. I know, especially coming this time of year, right? It's December, heading into the new year. I know there's things that I need to set goals for next year, and it's a little stressful to set personal goals. However, once they're in motion, going back to the slide 2 slides ago, and that when I said that should have been a wheel chart. Once you get to the point that they're set and now they're in, like I said, motion, the stress reduction is unbelievable. Getting there is sometimes tough, setting them, but once they're set, it's unbelievable, the stress reduction. And because you have less stress, you make better decisions. You know this personally. You know there's been times in your life, whether it's from your kids or a spouse or work or parents, that it's a stressful moment, it's a stressful time, and you did something you knew you shouldn't have done. I mean, a simple example, I could be on a weight loss program to try and lose some weight. I'm in a stress position. I don't even realize it, but I got an ice cream in my hand. I mean, that's a dumb decision, right? It's a stressful time that caused me to do something that's a bad decision. So the less stress, the better decisions. The better decision, since this is financial slides, the more wealth accumulation we'll have. So if you don't make bad decisions, wealth grows in financial world. What I mentioned earlier, my female clients tend to allow the process to work. They're making rash decisions. Some of my male clients, unfortunately, they tend to make more rash decisions. My female clients, in many cases, have a better overall return on their money after 3, 4, 5 years than my male clients, because they're letting the process work. Some of my male clients are basically just trying to be in the kitchen too much, right? They're trying to make decisions for us. I know you're telling me to be patient. I can't be patient. I'll make some changes. So wealth accumulation does occur with stress reduction, improved decision making, and then you have empowerment. Then you have that financial independence that you're looking for, that we're all looking for. So we're trying to help guide our clients to get there. What do we do today? What do we do right now? So set small, achievable goals. Just look at it, things that you can do that are achievable. I tell people the people who fail first are the ones who make ridiculous, just look, if I told you today that by the end of 2020, by the end of next year, that I want to run a marathon, are you kidding me? A goal for me would be, I want to be able to run a 10K at a certain pace or a certain time. That's achievable. I mean, if I said I want to do that by March, April, I can work towards that. That's small steps, and I can look at the progress. I can celebrate achievements. When I run a 5K in February, and it's a really good. I can do those types of things. When I make the goal too big, I'm going to fail, and then it gets stressful. Then the cycle just reverses. Do these types of things. I would implore you, and this is a plug for us. People are out there who can help you do this. Okay. So even companies, firms like Highland Trust who manage portfolios, who work with people in financial planning, that's all, and for our purposes, that's all about helping clients goal set. It's helping clients do the kind of things that and put things in motion that can get them to a happy place in their life. And that includes making sure that we're building their goals with them, giving them ideas that we've seen from others, and putting a tracking system in place. And some of that includes investments, some of it doesn't. For us, I'll give you a prime example. It sounds maybe a sidebar crazy conversation, but it's true. I have a lot of clients that work on that I'm an accountability partner for health goals. And when we do our meetings every once in a while, I'll catch up with it. Have you reached that level you want to reach on your diet? Have you reached that level you want to reach on reducing sugar? Have you reached that level you want to reach on your weight? Because I'm looking at your retirement future, and I know, again, done this as long as we've done it, that if you're in a good, healthy if you're a good, healthy state in entering retirement years, you're going to live longer, you're going to live healthier, you're not going to spend as much money on health costs. So then it becomes financial, right? So most things that we talk about, we can work finances and then see how finances affect us. So just letting you know that there are people like us who can do that for you, which I preach again. Consider talking to an expert to see if it will work for you. These are John Hancock's, but we have a ton of worksheets, a ton of checklists to help people get themselves better. This is a non-commitment to us to be a client to grab some of these from us and for different things in your life. Happy to send these and others to people just so they can kind of dig through and see if they want to go further. If you get things like this and you say, I probably need to go, I probably need to take this another step and start really getting serious and talking to people, here we are. And that's a little bit dated picture now because we've added team members. So reach out to us, email address, phone number. How can we help if we can? And if you're choosing to do some of this by yourself, best of luck. I hope everything goes fantastic. And again, if we can be of any assistance whatsoever, please let us know. So with that, I appreciate your time and I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you.